Before the steel, before the empire, before the libraries that would rise like cathedrals of knowledge across America, there was only hunger. A boy, small and frail, born in a cramped cottage in Dunfermline, Scotland in 1835. His name was Andrew Carnegie, and his world was defined not by abundance, but by scarcity. The walls of his home were thin, the air heavy with the smell of poverty, and the sound of his father's loom was the rhythm of survival. But even that rhythm was fading, drowned out by the march of machines that rendered his father's craft obsolete. The Industrial Revolution was swallowing the old world whole, and the Carnegies were being left behind. Hunger gnawed at their stomachs, despair their spirits. Yet, in the eyes of young Andrew, there was something else. A spark, a fire that refused to be extinguished. When the family made the desperate decision to leave Scotland for America, they carried little more than hope. The voyage across the Atlantic was not a journey of luxury, but of survival. Packed into steerage with hundreds of other immigrants, the Carnegies endured sickness, stench, and uncertainty. But for Andrew, America was not just a destination, it was a promise. A land where a boy with nothing could become a man with everything if only he had the will to endure. In Pittsburgh, the reality was harsher than the dream. The Carnegies were poor, and Andrew, barely a teenager, was thrust into the brutal world of labor. At 13, he worked 12-hour shifts in a cotton factory, his small hands guiding threads through dangerous machines. The pay was meager, $1.20 a week, but it was survival. Every blister, every bead of sweat, every ache in his body was a reminder of where he came from and where he refused to remain. Poverty was not his destiny, it was his fuel. But even in the grind of factory life, Andrew's mind was restless. He refused to let the darkness of his circumstances blind him to the light of possibility. When he became a telegraph messenger boy, he memorized every street, every name, every face. He was not just delivering messages, he was building a map of opportunity. He learned to read signals, to anticipate needs, to move faster than anyone else. And when he wasn't working, he was reading. Books became his escape, his education, his weapon. He borrowed them wherever he could, devouring words by candlelight, teaching himself the lessons that poverty had denied him. Knowledge became his armor, discipline his shield, and ambition his sword. Step by step, Carnegie climbed, from messenger to operator, from operator to assistant, from assistant to investor. He seized every chance, no matter how small, and turned it into momentum. He learned the language of business, the rhythm of industry, the art of risk. He saw the future in steel, and he bet everything on it. While others hesitated, he acted. While others doubted, he believed. And in the fire of the furnaces, he forged not just steel, but his destiny. The rise was not easy. It was brutal, filled with setbacks, betrayals, and battles. But Carnegie's will was relentless. He built railroads, bridges, and factories. He turned molten metal into the backbone of a nation. His empire grew, and with it, his power. From the soot of Pittsburgh to the skyline of America, his name became synonymous with steel. He had risen from nothing to become one of richest men in the world. But the story does not end with wealth, because for Carnegie, wealth was never the destination. It was the tool. He remembered the hunger. He remembered the blisters. He remembered the boy who had nothing. And he vowed that no man should die rich. He gave away his fortune, building libraries, schools, and foundations. He believed that knowledge was the true power, and he dedicated his life to giving others the chance he had fought so hard to seize. In the end, Andrew Carnegie proved that pain can be transformed into power, that struggle can become strength, and that scars can become crowns. Carnegie's rise was not a straight line. It was a climb, jagged and treacherous, filled with moments where failure seemed inevitable. But every setback only sharpened his resolve. When others saw obstacles, he saw opportunities. When others hesitated, he moved. He understood something most men never grasp: that fortune favors not the lucky, but the relentless. He was relentless. As a young man, he invested in railroads, learning the pulse of a nation that was stretching its arms from coast to coast. He studied the flow of goods, the movement of people, the veins of commerce that would define America's future. He saw that steel would be the blood that pumped through those veins. Stronger than iron, more versatile than wood, steel was the future. And Andrew Carnegie would be the man to forge it. The furnaces roared, molten metal pouring like rivers of fire. Sparks flew, smoke billowed, and in that chaos, Carnegie saw not destruction, but creation. He built mills that dwarfed the imagination, factories that turned raw ore into the skeletons of cities, bridges, railroads, skyscrapers, all rose from the steel he produced. America was being built, and at its foundation was Carnegie's vision. But with power came enemies. Rivals sought to crush him, critics condemned him, and workers often cursed his name. The conditions in his mills were brutal, the hours long, the pay meager. Strikes erupted, blood was spilled, and Carnegie's empire was stained with controversy. Yet even in these moments, he never wavered. He believed that the sacrifices of the present were the price of the future. He was not building for comfort. He was building for legacy. And legacy to Carnegie meant more than wealth. He had seen poverty. He had lived it. He knew its chains, its humiliation, its despair. And he knew that the only true escape was knowledge. Books had saved him, opened his mind, given him the tools to rise. And so, when his fortune reached heights unimaginable, he made a decision that would define him forever. He would give it away. Not recklessly, not carelessly, but with purpose. He built libraries, thousands of them, across America and beyond. He believed that every man, no matter how poor, should have access to the knowledge that had lifted him. He funded schools, universities, foundations. He poured his wealth into the future, into minds yet unborn, into dreams yet unimagined. He gave away over 90% of his fortune, a sum so vast it reshaped the very idea of philanthropy. And in doing so, he proved a truth that still echoes today. True power is not in what you keep, but in what you give. Andrew Carnegie's life was a paradox. A man who built an empire on the backs of laborers, yet gave away his fortune to uplift humanity. A man who knew the sting of poverty, yet demanded sacrifice from those who worked for him. A man who rose from nothing to become one of the richest in history, yet chose to die with little. But in that paradox lies the essence of transformation. He was not perfect. He was not without flaws. But he was proof that pain can be the forge of greatness. From the soot of Scotland to the steel of Pittsburgh, from the hunger of a child to the power of a titan, his story is not just history. It is a lesson. A lesson that no matter where you begin, no matter how deep the struggle, no matter how heavy the chains, you can rise. You can turn pain into power. Imagine the boy in the factory, his hands blistered, his stomach empty, his future uncertain. Now imagine the man who built libraries that still stand, who gave millions the chance to learn, who left behind not just wealth but wisdom. That is the journey. That is the fire. That is the crown forged from scars. And so, when you think of Andrew Carnegie, do not think only of steel or wealth or philanthropy. Think of the boy who refused to be broken. Think of the man who turned struggle into strength. Think of the truth his life embodies, that greatness is not given, it is forged. Forged in fire, in pain, in sacrifice. From poverty to power, Andrew Carnegie's story is not just his own. It is yours. It is mine. It is anyone's who dares to rise. Because the question is not whether you will face pain. You will. The question is what you will do with it. Will you let it break you? Or will you let it build you? Carnegie answered that question with his life. And now, it is your turn. Your pain can be your fire. Your struggle can be your strength. And your scars can be your crown.